Hey there. Happy Wednesday evening. It is 5 p.m. here on the West Coast, California time. My name is Reverend Rafe Ellis, and I want to welcome you to the launch of our Wednesday evening Ask the Rev Anything playtime. And so I've gathered questions, and they're on the magic spinning wheel, and we'll do that in just a minute. First, let's just take a moment to center and do an opening prayer. And so I invite you to just bring your attention to your breath. Just allow everything else to find a place to rest. It'll be right there. You can pick it up whenever you want. And join me as we remember there's only one infinite, ever-present life. That life is the only life there is. And so it must be my life. It must be the life of every individualized expression of it. And so this is a time of just opening to the divine wisdom of this one, allowing it to flow through, allowing ourselves to become aware of things that we don't even know how we know, to play, to have fun as we learn and grow. Grateful for this time together, grateful for everyone who is joining on Facebook and YouTube, grateful for this opportunity just to commune and be present. So I let go. I let it be. And so it is. So if I appear distracted from time to time, I'm not. What I'm actually doing is attempting to interact with those of you on YouTube and Facebook at the same time that I'm doing this, because I'm flying solo. As we get started, that's just kind of how things are rolling out, and that's just perfect. And so let me see if I can spot any of you here on Facebook. Barbara Witt. Hey, Barbara Witt. So glad you're joining. So the way this works, and if you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube, just if you feel like it, just put a little note there in the chat that lets me know who you are. If you want to share where you're from, great. If you don't, that's great too. So what we're doing is I have this wheel of questions, and they're all over the map, which is really kind of cool. One of them is, what does science of mind teach about Jesus? What's the difference between individualized and individual? Can you explain what science of mind means by a collective consciousness? So there's just a bunch of those on here. And so what I'm going to do is spin the wheel. We'll see where it lands. And that's what we'll talk about. Here we go. And the winner is Science of Mind Christian? I'm just having this realization now live with you that this may be the craziest thing I've ever endeavored to do. Is Science of Mind Christian? Well, yes and no, and it depends. Do we have roots in Christianity? Absolutely. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, quotes the Bible frequently. I think what we really have to reconcile is our relationship with the word Christian. Are we talking Christianity of the creation story where there's only one child of God, and God is outside of ourselves, um, and Jesus is the exception, and none of us can ever be fully like him. In that context, in the context of the Christianity I was raised with, that there is an entity outside of me that punishes me or rewards me, and that I have to go through an intermediary of Jesus to be saved. In that context, no, science of mind does not follow that philosophy. Now, in terms of, I think it's Horatio Willis Dresser back in 1911, if I'm remembering correctly, which is always a flip of the coin, quite honestly. In the history of New Thought, I believe it is Dresser that first wrote, Christianity would have worked had it ever been tried. Now, I mean that in absolutely no disparaging way to Christianity. Christianity, my understanding in its purest form, even as Jesus taught it, is a Christ consciousness. It is that place of alignment where our human alignment, our human consciousness, our human awareness aligns with the consciousness that was born in us of the one life, the one God, one love, whatever name we call it. And that is the moment of the glory of God, is that coming home, that coming into alignment with the truth of us. When I read the words of Jesus, he was very clear that he was not the exception, he was the example. And that everything that he experienced, everything that he knew, everything that was in him was in us, and we knew it too. The difference is sometimes we don't know we know it. Sometimes we don't know we're it. And so when we lack that awareness, we lack an experience of it. So there's that. Are we Christian? Depends on how you define the word Christian. I can't say that I'm unchristian, but whenever I answer that question, I always check, what are they actually asking me? So there's that. I'm looking here in the chat on Facebook. If you have any comments or follow-up questions, I would love for you to engage. Just because I'm here and you're there doesn't mean we can't engage and communicate. So, any ideas, any thoughts? If not, I'll just spin the wheel again. All right. Let's see what else we have to play with. Here we go. Okay, here's the question it landed on. How does changing ourselves change the world? Whew, that's a big one. And yet, it's really simple in my understanding. And let's be really clear here, folks. I'm sharing my understanding. We're engaging in this exploration together. I am by no means the authority on anything beyond my own experience. And my understanding changes on a regular basis. Um, so how does changing ourselves change the world? The image that comes to mind is a cup of water, right? And if we were to put a probe anywhere in that cup of water that's vibrating, eventually that entire cup of water, every molecule, every atom in that cup of water would be vibrating at the same frequency. We're all made of energy. We're energy pods, if you will, in human form. And so as we each change and bring ourselves into alignment with a higher vibration, the whole quantum field changes vibration. It's what's often referred to as the butterfly effect. When a butterfly moves one place, energy moves every place. I think that might be one of the hardest things for us to grasp, because we live in this 3D world where everything seems very separate. And so the idea that we actually aren't separate, the reality that there's nothing solid, there are no two, the atoms and molecules that make everything up aren't touching. Most of, everything that we experience as solid has space in it. It's just the frequency, the vibration is at such a slow rate that it appears solid. Science teaches us that there are instruments available that can do this, that even the homes that we live in that appear to be in the exact same place day after day are actually in motion, right? So we live in a fluid universe of vibration. And so when any one of us changes our vibration, it changes the vibration of the whole. And so as we change and evolve, we impact one another. And so it's that place where, how you have a certain space that you're in, a certain vibration that you're in, and you walk into a room and instantly feel something shift in you. It's that operating. And that's how changing ourselves changes the world. Now, I hear my own thoughts. Well, where's the tipping point to where we really see a shift? I don't know that I know that. What I know is that faith is a belief in things not seen. And I can't see everything that I know is true. I can't see that energy shift that I feel when I walk into a room, but I certainly experience it as real. I know it's real because I experience it. And I trust science, which on the surface is kind of an interesting comment to make, because science is a field that only expands by disproving itself. And so, how do we trust that? Well, I trust that it's evolving. I trust that more is being revealed. And I trust the process. And what I know is, there's the micro level and then there's the macro level. And, we can see environmentally how change impacts the whole. Um, with, you know, as uncomfortable as it has been living and dancing with this evolution of COVID, there have been measurable changes environmentally because we've slowed down. Um, it's the same principle. It's the same science of when we change, the world changes. And so where's the tipping point? I think when enough of us change, and we change consistently, when we make that shift and stay there, then it invites more people to shift, because that shift in energy invites more people to shift. And as we collectively shift, the whole world shifts. And I'm just crazy enough to believe that it's happening. Not that we can do it, but that we are doing it. It's happening right now. You're tuned into this. I'm sitting here jabbering thoughts in an empty space. But is it really empty? No. It's empty of physical bodies, but it's not empty space. And everything that's being said and everything that's being heard is alive in the one mind, in that quantum field, the butterfly effect. So that's my understanding of how changing ourselves changes the world. Looking to see if there's any comments. Not seeing any at the moment. Of course, I'm not seeing anything at the moment. There we go. Okay. Shift over here to Facebook. Okay. Well, let me spin the wheel one more time. Let's see what happens here. Okay, here's a question that somebody submitted. How does my thinking create reality? Well, again, I think we have to first start with how we're defining reality. If we're talking about ultimate reality, reality with a capital R, reality being divinity itself, then our thoughts don't create reality. One of my favorite Ernest Holmes quotes, many of us think our thoughts create reality. This has never been true. Thinking the world was flat never made the world flat. It simply flattened our experience of it. And so when we think about reality, many of us, I think, are actually talking about our experience, and that because it's real to us, that's reality. One of the things that we teach in metaphysics is that there is one infinite reality, one substance, synonymous with substance, synonymous with consciousness, that the absolute reality, everything is created out of it, by it, to be it. So from that standpoint, our thoughts use reality to create. because the same creative process that is the creative process of the ultimate reality is part of our spiritual DNA. We have that same power. To borrow from my days as a drug and alcohol counselor, probably the most accessible explanation of that, TFUA. Our thoughts create our feelings. Our feelings create our urges. Our urges create our actions. Our actions repeated create patterns, and our patterns habituated become our life. And so from that perspective, our thoughts very much create the reality that we experience. That's the good news and the bad news. Because what we create, we can recreate, we can change, we can shift. You may be familiar with the phrase, change your thinking, change your life. It really does work just that way. The trick is that we have to be really clear what we're actually thinking. I remember Dr. Christian DeQuincy, one of my professors in ministerial school, made the point that most of what we think is thought is really thinking about thought. That thought in metaphysics, in my experience, is really a place that is synonymous with belief. And the thoughts that demonstrate, that are most active, are those thoughts that are so habituated that we don't even think about them, that they're operating at a level of unquestioned belief, which quite honestly is faith, right? And so those beliefs that are operating at that unquestioned level are constantly creating and constantly showing up in our lives. Do we create that? The power of our thought is creative. I think another thing that we have to look at with this question is, does my thinking create reality? Is when we're asking that question, what's motivating the question? Because a lot of times what motivates the question is wanting it to say no. We want the answer to be no because we feel blamed. My experience is we ask that question when we're experiencing something that we don't want to experience. Right? And typically it'll show up as, why am I creating this? Well, your beliefs, our beliefs are creating it. And so part of what I think we have to do is shift out of any sense of guilt, shame, or blame in order to create enough spaciousness and enough permission to actually own our thoughts. Most of us meet that with this idea that I shouldn't be thinking this. Well, whether you should or you shouldn't, what if you just are thinking it? And what if we take away the guilt and shame? And we just allow ourselves, instead of I shouldn't be thinking this, to lean into, oh wow, look at what I'm thinking. Yeah. To even allow yourself to be surprised by it. To meet it with a playful spirit rather than one of condemnation with a big stick. And just lean into exploring it. Well, where did that thought come from? Is it really even mine? Or is it a thought that is just out there somewhere? I had this, I do a group on Tuesday nights. It's a actualizing wholeness discussion group. And it's based on the works and dialogue process of David Bohm. And it really, the simplest way to explain that is it is a conversation exploring exploration for exploration's sake. We allow ourselves to be informed by whatever ideas pop into our head, and we just kind of allow the conversation to flow wherever it wants to flow with zero investment in it going any particular place. And it's an amazingly powerful process. So several weeks ago, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but a couple of hours after that group ended, I was sitting out on the back deck of our house, and what I became aware of as I was just contemplating my navel was that I was having this deeper understanding of the collective consciousness and how thoughts that just seem to come out of nowhere show up. And I set my cup of coffee down, and I noticed that when the cup hit the counter there outside, the coffee rippled, but then it stopped. And I had an aha that in the infinite, right, if there's one mind, and I'm convinced that this is true, then infinite has no edges. That ripple in my coffee cup stopped because the waves, the ripples, got to the edge, and so it created a change in the vibration, and it stopped those ripples. So if we think about thought as a ripple in the infinite field, in the quantum field, well, infinite has no edges. It has no borders. It has no stopping point for any thought that has ever been thunk. And in that moment, I had a whole new awareness of the eternality of life and thought. And I understood in a different way how it is that every thought that has ever been thunk is still active in the collective consciousness. And so it makes sense that all these ripples are happening, and every once in a while, a ripple from from someone else is going to connect with my ripple. Ernest Holmes talks about that as the psychic realm, that it makes sense that we can become aware of other thoughts in a shared consciousness because we are living in a shared consciousness. There's no real woo-woo about it. We all have the capacity if we're open to it. Some of us are, some of us aren't, and that's perfect. But the way that this whole thing works, with our thinking creating our reality, I think, is more accurately understood as we use reality through our thoughts to manifest in form. And what we tell ourselves about that creates our experience of reality. But reality, ultimate reality, is changeless. And yet it changes form and creates in multiplicity all the time. Yeah. So we have some comments. Yay! Let me check out the comments. Hello, Mignon Pollard. Janella Kirkman. Let's see, who else is there? Barbara Witt, shoulda, coulda, right? Any other questions or comments? This is fun. I have people playing with me. Yay! Because I got to tell you, the weirdest part about COVID is, you know, here I am in this room, and there you are, wherever you are. But that's also a really cool gift. And so, following up with this same question of, do my thoughts create my reality? They certainly create my experience of it. We've recently started opening the center back up on Sunday and Wednesday evening for a limited capacity of people. And after a year of just talking to the camera, it was weird to have people in the room. And so we get used to what we get used to, and that's that habituated thinking that just operates automatically. I invite you and encourage you to fall in love with living in the question. Answers will come and they'll apply in the moment. But every situation is new. And so the answer that worked 5 minutes ago may not work now. We might need a new answer. And what would it be like if we lived in love with the question and trusted the infinite intelligence within us that already has every answer we need? Maybe we'd hear more of them. Maybe our thoughts would shift. We go back to one of the other questions this evening about, how does changing ourselves change reality? Well, imagine how the energy of the universe would shift, the vibration that would be created if more of us lived in love with the question instead of frustration because we don't have the answers. I think we do have the answers. I think if we're being really honest, we're looking for an answer, a scripted answer. And when we don't get that one, we may not like the answer that we get, that is the answer for that moment. And then we want to hold on to that answer and extrapolate it and apply it to every situation that looks remotely like that. I don't think that's the way creation works. If every moment is now, then can we be daring enough? Can we be brave enough? Can we be ridiculous enough to just apply it to now? And now, something new. And now, something new. I'm getting a insight, download, whatever I want to call it, to, this is the gift, one of the gifts that we're getting in this pandemic. We get to pause, we get to slow down, we get to assess and evaluate so much of the focus is on getting back to something. What if we focused on now? What if we focused on creating anew now? Doesn't mean we don't bring some of the things forward that we've enjoyed and that we want to hold on to. But I wonder how our experience would shift, how everything would shift energetically if we simply shifted our focus forward instead of backward, and allow ourselves to be informed of a new way of doing things. I just wonder about that. Might change everything, might change nothing. It's worth a shot. Yeah. So any other questions, comments? Because there's always room to add more questions. I'll just leave it filled up with the ones I have until we run out of them. But yeah. So let me spin it one more time, and then I'm going to wrap us up. Well, maybe I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up because it landed on the same question as before. Is Science of Mind Christian? Yes, no, maybe so. It really does depend on how we relate to the Word. So the other thing that I'm going to do is I will, the questions that came up tonight, I know me, so I'll do some digging to come up with some answers from other folks that I can share with you and other perspectives, because like I said in the beginning, mine is not the only one, and I'm the authority on my thinking only. I'm a tour guide to help you navigate your thinking, not to tell you what to think, but to journey with you through your thoughts. And so this is just a playtime. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close us out with prayer, just because it says from 5 to 6, there's nobody here demanding I keep going, and I'm feeling complete, so I'm going to honor that. And so I invite you to just take whatever nuggets have been here for you this evening, to bring those to mind, to invite yourself to embody new information in a new way, to play in the question without any need or demand for an answer, to fall in love with living in the question. To allow yourself to live in the liberation, in the freedom from good, bad, right, wrong, more, less, big, small, and to simply play in the realm of what is, free of judgment, free of clutching, free of stagnation, to literally let go of the shore and surrender to the flow. we can always swim back to the shore. Grateful for this time together. Grateful for each individual who has joined in and who will watch this later. And who will watch it never. All perfect. So I let go. I let it be. And so it is. Good night, beloveds. I'm going to go turn off the camera now and the